The comedian Henny Youngman once famously quipped, "After reading about the evils of drinking, I gave up reading." And giving up reading about cosmology and astrophysics is a recommended approach for the person who wishes to maintain belief in a God-free universe and the cherished freedom for moral accountability that it allows. Anyone who probes into the origins of our universe soon becomes overwhelmed by the evidence that, quote, the universe is a put-up job or the product of deliberate conscious intent, to cite the words of Cambridge University physicist and mathematician Fred Hoyle. So compelling, in fact, has become the case for the universe as a product of a conscious creator that astrophysicist Hugh Ross, a former post-doctoral fellow at the California Institute of Technology, observes, astronomers who do not draw theistic or deistic conclusions are becoming rare, and even the few dissenters hint that the tide is against them. Geoffrey Burbidge of the University of California at San Diego complains that his fellow astronomers are rushing off to join, quote, the first Church of Christ of the Big Bang. For example, the man widely regarded to be the greatest cosmologist of the last several decades and one of the founders of modern astronomy, Alan Sandage, writes, "I find it quite improbable that such order came out of chaos. There has to be some organizing principle. God to me is a mystery, but is the explanation for the miracle of existence, why there is something instead of nothing." But it is important to understand why it is becoming rare to find an astronomer or astrophysicist who does not reach theistic or deistic conclusions, rather than just taking scientists for their word. For those not familiar with the Big Bang, this cosmological event, now almost unanimously regarded as fact in the scientific community, constituted the beginning of the universe about 14 or 15 billion years ago, and bears eerie similarity to the biblical account of the universe's creation. As Arno Penzias, the 1978 Nobel Prize recipient in physics, stated to the New York Times on March 12 of 1978, "The best data we have concerning the Big Bang are exactly what I would have predicted had I nothing to go on but the 5 books of Moses, the Psalms, and the Bible as a whole." Similarly, the astronomer, physicist, and founder of NASA's Goddard Institute for Space Studies, Robert Jastrow, writes, "Now we see how the astronomical evidence leads to a biblical view of the origin of the world. The details differ, but the essential elements in the astronomical and biblical accounts of Genesis are the same. The chain of events leading to man commenced suddenly and sharply at a definite moment in time, in a flash of light and energy." It is difficult to overstate the immensity of the problem the Big Bang poses to those wishing to hold fast to an atheistic, naturalistic view of the universe. Since the early days of the Enlightenment, atheism has relied on the assumption that the universe did not need a creator because it has existed for an infinite amount of time and therefore did not have a beginning. No origin, therefore no originator. 18th century Scottish philosopher David Hume was among the first highly influential atheist figures to posit this belief, and it continued to be promoted right up until the 20th century by such key atheist figures as the philosopher Bertrand Russell. But the fact that the universe is now known to have had a beginning is really only the beginning of the problem for atheists. Patrick Glynn, in his book God the Evidence, notes, "Beginning in the 1960s, scientists began to notice a strange connection among a number of coincidences in physics. It turns out that many of the mysterious values and relationships in physics could be explained by one overriding fact. Such values had been necessary for the creation of life." A few examples of thousands of anthropic constraints. Gravity. If the gravitational force were altered by 10 to the negative 37th power %, our sun would not exist, and therefore neither would we. Centrifugal force. If the centrifugal force of planetary movements did not precisely balance the gravitational forces, nothing would stay in orbit around the sun. Rate of expansion. If the universe had expanded at a rate even 1/millionth more slowly than it did, expansion would have stopped and the universe would have collapsed on itself before any stars had formed. If it expanded faster, then no galaxies would have formed. Distinguished former Cambridge University astrophysicist John Polkinghorne explains how very balanced on a knife edge our universe is in his book, Questions of Truth. As Nobel Prize-winning physicist Tony Hewish once remarked, the accuracy of just one of these parameters is comparable to getting the mix of flour and sugar right to within 1 grain of sugar in a cake 10 times the mass of the sun. Now, what is truly revealing and entertaining is how atheists try to get around the fine-tuning argument for God. And it was partially the result of observing atheists trying to wriggle free of the inescapable theistic implications of the Big Bang that persuaded Antony Flew, who was arguably the world's most prominent atheist, to accept the existence of God. Antony Flew was a former Oxford University philosopher who could, earlier in his career, be accurately characterized as the frontman for atheism as a philosophical cause. His paper entitled Theology and Falsification became the most widely reprinted philosophical tract of the last half-century and constituted much of the intellectual foundation for modern atheism. His acceptance of the existence of God on rational grounds in 2004 was truly scandalous for atheists. In his book, There Is a God, How the World's Most Notorious Atheist Changed His Mind, Flew describes just how unpersuasive atheistic explanations for the Big Bang and the fine-tuning argument are. By far the most popular atheist escape hatch for the fine-tuning argument is to cite multiple universes, or the many worlds hypothesis. This stance states that the sudden emergence of our universe need not be interpreted as a creation event because ours is only one among many universes that have emerged spontaneously. So many universes exist, goes the argument, that it should not be a surprise that one of these universes, ours, is uniquely fine-tuned for the emergence of intelligent life. Flew responds to this argument. The postulation of multiple universes is a truly desperate alternative. If the existence of one universe requires an explanation, multiple universes require a much bigger explanation. The problem is increased by the factor of whatever the total number of universes is. It seems a little like the case of the schoolboy whose teacher doesn't believe his dog ate his homework, so he replaces the first version with a story that a pack of dogs, too many to count, ate his homework. But you don't have to be an Oxford University professor of philosophy to understand what Flew is driving at. Citing multiple universes does not provide an explanation of the fine-tuned nature of our universe. Instead of explaining, it just provides more to explain. Notably, the desperation displayed by atheist scientists to avoid these theistic implications has not escaped the attention of those in the astrophysics community. Imperial College of London astrophysicist Christopher J. Isham, who is Britain's leading quantum cosmologist, comments on this ideological bias and how it only serves as further evidence that Big Bang science supports theism. Perhaps the best argument that the Big Bang supports theism is the obvious unease with which it is greeted by some atheist physicists. At times, this has led to scientific ideas being advanced with a tenacity which so exceeds their intrinsic worth that one can only suspect the operation of psychological forces lying much deeper than the usual academic desire of a theorist to support his or her theory. I can't tell you what to believe, but if atheist physicists have to try desperately to avoid theism, so desperately in fact, that they resort to adult equivalents of the dog ate my homework stories, then do these atheist physicists believe in atheism for logical reasons or ideological and psychological reasons? You be the judge.